Hello everyone, we are going to discuss the structures and functions of the adrenal cortex. Firstly, let us start with the case. Rose was a 32-year-old woman who developed systemic lupus erythematosus, SLE. The doctor said SLE was a kind of autoimmune disease and prescribed relatively high-dose misoprostol for 2 weeks. After treatment, Rose found that the SLE symptoms have abated, but there are some unexpected changes in her body, including weight gain, round face, and acne on the skin. What was the function of misoprostol in SLE? Why did these unpleasant symptoms develop after 14 days therapy? After going through the structures and functions of the adrenal cortex, you should be able to identify the different rooms in the cortex of adrenal gland, list the hormones produced by each room, and explain some symptoms of the clinical disorders. This picture shows us the location of the adrenal gland just above the kidneys. According to their location, you can also call them suprarenal glands. These glands are important endocrine organs of the human body. From a cross-sectional view, the gland is divided into 2 parts, the peripheral adrenal cortex and the central medulla. The 2 parts are different in embryogenesis. The cortex arises from mesoderm, and the medulla from the neural crest of the ectoderm. Thus, their structures and functions are significantly different. In this session, we will focus on the cortex. The adrenal cortex secretes adrenocortical hormones consisting of a mixture of several types of steroids. Cortical dysfunction, known as hyperadrenal or hypoadrenal can cause clinical disorders such as Cushing's syndrome and Addison's syndrome, respectively. Microscopically and low power field, we can easily see the cortical region, the out part of the gland, with 3 concentric zones. From outside to inside, they are rula glomerulosa, rula fasciculata, and rula reticularis. Among these, rula fasciculata occupies most of the cortex. At high power, the zone details can be identified. Let us start at the outermost zone. The rula glomerulosa, immediately beneath the capsule, comprises about 15% of the cortex. In this area, round or columnar or pyramidal cells are closely packed in spherical clusters. Cells in this zone secrete mineralocorticoid hormones which can regulate the balance of water, electrolytes, sodium, and potassium through the kidney. These hormones form part of the renin-angiotensin-aldosterone system, RAAS. This pathway is involved in the regulation of blood pressure through renal tubules and collecting duct in water and electrolytes absorption. You can find the details from physiological textbooks or our school's online course of clinical physiology. The second zone of adrenal cortex is rula fasciculata. This zone occupies about 65% to 80% of the cortex and consists of long cords of large polyhedral cells. These large cells are filled with lipid droplets and appear vacuolated in routine histologic preparations. These cells secrete glucocorticoids and modulate the metabolism of carbohydrate, fat, and proteins. Production of glucocorticoid is mainly regulated by adrenal corticotropin hormone, which is secreted by pituitary gland. The predominant glucocorticoid in humans is cortisol. For the physiological functions of the glucocorticoids, please again refer to resource in physiology. One of the functions of glucocorticoid is in suppressing immune response and inhibiting inflammation. Exogenous glucocorticoids, for example, misoprostol, are very useful in treating autoimmune disease and other inflammatory disorders, such as asthma. However, prolonged use high-dose glucocorticoid will lead to many side effects, as manifested by those in our case. The symptoms are similar to the Cushing's syndrome caused by increased ACTH or an adrenal tumor. The innermost ulnar reticularis locates close to the medulla. It occupies about 10% of the cortex, and the cells are arranged in a branching network. The cells are smaller and more heavily stained than other zones because they contain fewer lipid droplets and more lipofuscin pigment. These cells can secrete cortisol and androgen that supplement the sex steroids secreted by the galls. Increased androgen secretion during puberty by the testes is required for the growth of male accessory sex organs. Well, in female, small amount of androgen promotes the growth of bone, muscle, and body hair. If the ulnar reticularis secretes excess androgen in the female, it may result in virilization, including hirsutism, gain in muscle mass, breast atrophy, and amenorrhea, etc. Above, we have discussed the cortical region of adrenal gland. Based on hormonal functions of the gland, can you explain the symptoms Rose developed after her prolonged high-dose misoprostol treatment? Here are the references. Thank you. See you next time.